So why didn't Kenner release a Governor Tarkin action figure? Well, we'll take a look. Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back for you with another video with a question that I get asked a lot. Why didn't Kenner release a Governor Tarkin action figure? Now, before we get started on that, as always, you want to support this channel, head over to patreon.com, where we got exclusive content, outtakes, commentary, exclusive things, all kinds of things. You want to go over to Patreon, and we have a lot more over at Patreon. If you want to support another way, go over to Junkman.com and buy some cool t-shirts. We got two new ones, like this Galoob shirt. And this one right here, can you tell what that is? Tales of the Golden Monkey. Hopefully some of you out there remember Tales of the Golden Monkey. Now let's find out why Kenner didn't release a Governor Tarkin action figure. Now before we get all into that, I have to say something because I know it's going to come in the comment section. So what's going to happen if I don't say it? This right here.
Junkman, you're so stupid. They did release a Governor Tarkin in the late 90s. Do some research before you make a video.
So I know I'm going to get that comment because I get it a lot. So before we get started with this video, let me stress I'm talking about the vintage Kenner line from 1978 to 1985. I know you're thinking, well, what about 1977? Well, technically the figures didn't release until 1978, although some was produced in 1977. So if you want to, we'll say 1977 to 1985. We're not talking modern day. And I know you're going to say this.
The 90s isn't modern toys. That's over 20 years old. That's vintage now.
So let me stress again, we're not talking the 90s. We're talking the vintage Star Wars era between 1977 and 1985. So this question comes up a lot. Why didn't Kenner make a Governor Tarkin action figure? And it's a good question to ask because it does leave your head scratching. Although to be honest with you, back in the day when I was a kid playing with Star Wars figures, I don't remember me, myself, anyone ever asking why they didn't do a Tarkin figure. It just wasn't something we ever thought about, at least not none of my friends. Now, there's no official word from Kenner or Lucasfilm on why there was no Governor Tarkin action figure. I think if we take a look at some of the facts, you'll see why there was no Governor Tarkin action figure. First up, one of the things I always see online is Peter Cushing, the actor that played Tarkin, would not give likeness rights for an action figure. This isn't true at all, being that we saw the likeness of Governor Tarkin on other things, such as a collectible glass, and he was appeared in the comic books. Other than internet rumors, there's no reason to think Governor Tarkin didn't sign away likeness rights. But let's look at the first wave of action figures, 1978's first 12. Now let me try to name all these and see if I get them correct. Death Squad Commander, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, C-3PO, R2-D2, Jawa, Sandman, Chewbacca. Who am I forgetting? Who did I say? Did I say who? Oh, anyway, the first 12 figures. I knew I wouldn't be able to name all 12 off the top of my head. I always leave one or two off. Jawa, Death Squad Commander, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, R2-D2, C-3PO, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Tusken Raider, Jawa and Sandman? Did I say those already? Anyway, the first 12. Kenner didn't know what this line was going to do. No one expected it to be a huge hit as it was. Sure, even if they already knew the movie was a hit, no one expected the Star Wars figures to stick around as long as they did. Most of the time, there was really no standard movie release figures at this time. Mego did do Planet of the Apes, but that was a little different because Planet of the Apes was an already ongoing series and a television show. So Kenner really probably thought, hey, we'll probably get one or two series out of this and then move on. Kids will move on to something else. So the first 12 came out. So you had to have your basic heroes for sure. Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, R2, and 3PO. And you had to have Darth Vader, and you had to have Stormtroopers. That would leave at least 4 figures for Governor Tarkin to fit right in. Well, they did a Death Squad Commander that looks, honestly, kind of like a Tarkin, but has a helmet. So why release a figure that's dressed almost the same, except he's an old man? And he wasn't appealing to kids. Sorry, we're talking 1978 standards. Kids walking in, they're not going to pick an old crusty man over an alien or a droid. So, instead of making Tarkin, they finished the line with the Tusken Raider and the Jawa. Simple as that. Then came Series 2, which was only 8 figures. 9 if you count Boba Fett that was added late in 1979. And there again, we were focused more on aliens. Except for the Luke X-Wing pilot. We had Greedo, Walrus Man, Hammerhead, R5-D4, Death Star droid, Power droid, and then Boba Fett. Again, sure there was room for a Tarkin figure, but this was a limited run. But these were 8 figures. Sure, you could take away a Snaggletooth or a Hammerhead and add a Tarkin, but let's really look at what kids wanted. Again, this is an era before collectors. It's not saying there wasn't collectors, but the toy industry really didn't focus on collectors at all. It was a very small amount of collectors. And then after 1979, what happened? The Empire Strikes Back came. Kenner moved away from Star Wars, dubbed A New Hope later in 1982, but they moved away from there. They were focusing on the new movie. They didn't want to go back to a movie that was almost 3 years old. They were focused on marketing Empire Strikes Back, getting the kids out there to buy the Empire Strikes Back figure. So by the time the Empire Strikes Back rolled around, Kenner was in full swing, and they knew these were going to be hit toys. So their main focus was the Empire Strikes Back. Again, this was before home video release. So most people saw Star Wars at the theater, and then moved on also to the Empire Strikes Back. There was no reason to think kids would want to go back to buy these older toys. Don't get me wrong, as a kid I probably would have bought some, but you have to move forward as a toy company. You have to sell the latest and the hottest. So, during the whole Empire Strikes Back run, Kenner focused on Empire Strikes Back figures. Then came Return of the Jedi. They really couldn't go back to Star Wars now. They were moving on to Return of the Jedi. And they weren't going to make Empire Strikes Back figures. So, what did they do? They made Return of the Jedi. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, Kenner did go back and make stuff from the other films. They made a Luke Stormtrooper, and that was from the original movie. Well, that was a very popular character. I mean, it was Luke Skywalker, and he was dressed as a Stormtrooper. 2 popular characters mixed in together. That was for the 1985 Power of the Force line. With no new movie on the horizon, it's true, Kenner was looking back to the original films to make figures based on Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi as part of the Power of the Force line. Not just because you can argue that the Gunner, although seen in Return of the Jedi, might also be a New Hope action figure. So this seemed like a perfect opportunity for Kenner to make a Governor Tarkin in the Power of the Force figure. And if Power of the Force continued, we probably would have gotten a Governor Tarkin figure at one time. But the 1985 Power of the Force line was the end of the vintage era. Kids wasn't really interested in Star Wars figures. And by this time, A New Hope was 8 years old. Most of the kids now playing with Return of the Jedi toys grew up on Empire Strikes Back and mostly Return of the Jedi. Kids that are around 10 or 11 when A New Hope came out were now in their late teens, moved on from Star Wars. So when you knew the aliens and the robots and the bad guys and the heroes were the main selling characters, why go back to Tarkin? Looking at plans for Kenner for 1986, it looks like there may have been plans for a Tarkin action figure. A Kenner binder with plans for the upcoming 1986 action figure line was tossed around Kenner, and in that binder was a photo of Peter Cushing as Tarkin. But that seems to be as far as we got with the line. There was actually a toy line plan that was kind of an expanded universe where Tarkin was kind of the new main villain, and he escaped the Death Star. I did a whole video about that line that we never got. I'll put that link in the description below if you want to check it out. So, let's sum up. Why didn't Kenner release a Governor Tarkin action figure? Well, there just wasn't enough time. Unlike Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that had 3 years worth of action figures, the Star Wars A New Hope action figure line was a limited run, starting in 1978 and 1979. Kenner just didn't have the time to focus on every little figure, and I guess they figured the Death Squad commander being dressed like Tarkin was good enough. With lines like Empire Strikes Back, and mostly with Return of the Jedi, Kenner had 3 years, and they knew this, and they knew how these figures would sell. They spent a lot more time throwing out there random background aliens and people that you didn't even really remember from the film. So that's a look at why Kenner never had a Grand Moff Tarkin action figure in the vintage line. Has nothing to do with likeness rights. Mostly just has to do with what Kenner thought they could sell in those first 2 years. I wish we did get a 1986 line. I think we would have been looking at a Tarkin in that line for sure, but sadly we didn't. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I'll be back very soon with another video.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.